to share with you. There's a face at the altar you may not all yet know. Of course, we all know Deacon Paul and Deacon Michael. And of course, we know Andy Erdman, who is serving for us, one of our technical people, making sure the computers all work right. And Father Paul we know, and Monsignor Thomas Maloney we know, but the very tall priest closest to you is Father David Baker, who recently moved in with us here at St. Gregory's, living with us at the rectory. Father David is the new vocation director for the diocese, and he was pastor St. Teresa's in Akron, and his greatest claim to fame, two great claims to fame. One is that I was his vocation director, and number two, that our dear Father Thomas had to put up with both of us as his associate at different times. So we know Father Tom's suffering has been great over the course. But Father David, we welcome you to St. Gregory's to be with us here. And I want to be very clear, his job is to work with vocations, particularly the men discerning the priesthood. So you may not see him around here a lot because his job is not to be here at St. Gregory's, but I know that he certainly is going to be part of our parish life and family as much as he can. And what a blessing and privilege it is for us to have the vocation director living with us here at St. Greg's. So how do we respond to blessings from God? It's a great question. How do we respond to blessings from God? And maybe similarly, another important question, how is it that we respond when what is taking place is not what we asked for from the Lord? We have a lot of examples of that this year, don't we? We have many disappointments, if it be the pandemic, which is high on the list, and just seeing here in church all of who is here, I know personal sufferings in some of your lives, loss of loved ones and other challenges of illness. How is it that we respond to God when we have a blessing come that brings us joy? How is it that we respond to God maybe when what we really hope and wish for isn't what is taking place? Simple question to ponder. Maybe we can look to the 10 lepers in the gospel for a little guidance today. We know there were 10 of them. 9 were Jewish. 1 was a Samaritan. It's very clear. And of course, we know very well that the Jews and the Samaritans did not get along, and that's an understatement. They basically hated each other. They did not get along at all. But yet, the 10 of them were together. Why? Why were these 10, 9 being Jewish, 1 being a Samaritan, why were the 10 of them together? Of course, they had to be on the outskirts of town. They were not allowed to mingle with society because of their leprosy. But that didn't necessitate that the 10 of them had to be together. Why was this Samaritan joined to the Jews? Well, because their common suffering overrode their racial indifference. Their suffering united them, and that suffering brought them together and was stronger than their dislike for one another, their aversion to one another. Well, what has been the outcome of the experience of this year for each of us? Where are we with the people that we maybe are at odds with? Has the common suffering of this year, isolation of this year, the physical lives that have been lost this year, many who are ill, has that called us to reconcile and bond in a greater way with those that we may be indifferent towards or angry with? I hope and pray that it has. And as a local community, as a nation, towards the end of spring and beginning of summer, we saw an awful lot of division in the media. And we saw rallies and fires and division intensified. And sitting back, reflecting not only at that exact moment that these things were taking place, but taking that step back now, I really believe that for people of faith, we do not have these divisions. I would dare say, for all of us in church right now, those on live stream and YouTube, all of the anger and division we saw is not really part of our personal lives, because there really isn't a prejudice among people of faith. And particularly when suffering takes place, especially people of faith know how to unite with one another and overcome whatever divisions may exist. My experience of growing up, I went to a small Catholic grammar school, Assumption School, now Our Lady of Black Rock, our sister parish, our sister school. And I went from that small Catholic grammar school to Riverside High School in the city of Buffalo. I was to go to Cardinal Doherty High School, and I got my letter accepting me, and a month later I got the letter saying the school was closing. And I was then to receive a third letter from Timon High School in South Buffalo telling me that I was automatically accepted to Timon. The only problem is that Polish boys from Black Rock did not necessarily do well in Irish South Buffalo. Two very different communities, and no real straight line either to get there. And so I went to Riverside High School. And I lived through forced busing, the desegregation of schools. And Riverside High School went from being basically a white neighborhood school in my 4 years to being completely racially integrated. 50% black, 50% white. I do not recall, and Mary Beth, who works for us, Mary Beth Pfeiffer, was in school with me there, we do not recall one moment of racial tension. There just wasn't. If anything, many of us kind of felt sorry for the children of color who came, because they were forced out of their neighborhood, and in many cases to a school they didn't even want to go to. We weren't forced to do anything, to leave our own neighborhood. I think there is racial tension in our nation and world. There probably always has been and probably always will be. But I'd like to believe, especially for all of us who are people of faith, that that is not in our heart, not in our mind, and not in our soul. It is very foreign to us. And if anything, that suffering unites us closer to those who genuinely are being criticized or treated inappropriately because of racial color or ethnic background. We learned that lesson today, I think, from the lepers. Secondly, that very point of faith is important. That's the second lesson we learned from the lepers. What did all 10 of them have? All 10 of the lepers had faith, did they not? Jesus simply said, "Go show yourself to the priest." Of course, it was the priest who had to acknowledge that they were healed and could return to society. We have to presume that these 10 lepers had faith. They trusted completely in Jesus' words. They had faith. And what else did they have that goes hand in hand with faith? They had obedience. They did not stop and question Jesus' decision. They simply obeyed what he commanded them to do. Faith requires obedience. And obedience has as its foundation genuine faith. What is obedience? Obedience is compliance with an order, a request, or a law. It's to submit, really, to someone's authority. And so these lepers teach us the importance of obedience and faith, which is the foundation therein. And haven't we been called this year to an obedience? You know, I like the little line on the thruway, on the highway, the young men, one simple ask, wear a mask. And so many people so upset over that. It really is a simple thing, isn't it, to be obedient to? I would like to know the alcohol content of all of our bodies after all of the sanitizer we've been using. It's probably permeating through. But isn't it a simple thing to simply use a little hand sanitizer and wash our hands? And isn't it a simple thing to just maintain some physical distance? These are very simple things that we're called and asked to do. And we're called to that obedience, and underneath it, not just because it's been asked of us by civil authorities, but why? Because we have a respect for each other's human lives and our own. It's an obedience to that beautiful gift of life. Sometimes we have to obey even if we disagree. And I'm not saying that we just blindly accept everything in life and obey. We have to use reason and faith therein. But we're called to that obedience, a lesson from the lepers today. And we're thankful for that gift of obedience because it gives us the gift of humility. Who was the least likely to return out of the 10? Well, it was the Samaritan, again, because of the division between Jews and Samaritans. And the least likely to return is the exact one who did. The least likely one is the only one who came to express gratitude to Jesus for the healing. And similarly, maybe in our own lives, probably the person in our life we're least likely to expect to come and say thank you is the very one who does. I hope you've had that experience. I know over and over again I've had that in my life. The person I'm least likely to come, probably the person I've done the least for, is the one who sometimes expresses the greatest gratitude. And this Thanksgiving, I hope and pray that we're also thankful for all of the challenges this year has provided. I am not suggesting that we should be thankful that people are ill in the hospital or have died from this disease. I'm not saying that. But I'm hoping and praying that we are thankful because I think this crisis has united us together just as those lepers were united. And there are so many things to be thankful for. I'm thankful that families have had to eat so many meals together this year at a table at home instead of in the back seat of a minivan on their way to a soccer game or a practice. I hope and pray that strengthens family life. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I had maybe an increased pace, as we all did here at the parish, to get us up and running in March and April, but yet there became a slower pace to life, not as much running. And hopefully we're thankful for that and realize maybe a deeper richness to life. I'm also thankful that some families and individuals are upset that families are not all going to be together at the table this year, mine included. We're doing the Zoom Thanksgiving today too. And it's hurtful, it's painful for us all. But I'm thankful for that hurt and that pain. Why? Because doesn't it really indicate how important our families and friends are to us? if we didn't care about one another, we wouldn't care that we weren't together. But because there's a genuine bond of love, that's why we feel that tension today, isn't it? We should be thankful that that tension exists. I'm thankful, although we've had a tremendous staff here at St. Greg's, our staff became even closer during this time of this crisis. And maybe you've experienced that in your own places of employment too, that everybody just stepped up to the plate to do what needed to be done. And I think our staff right now, our parish ministry team, is the closest that we've ever been together. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful to see so many neighbors delivering food to one another and looking after each other. The phone calls that go to older or more, compromised health-wise parishioners. I'm thankful that we've really looked after one another. I'm thankful to so many parishioners and non-parishioners who took the time to write letters of thanks for all that we were doing at the parish, and so many individuals who stepped up to make generous donations. And we got a $500 check from someone in Colorado because they were online with us every single day. We wouldn't even have known. And that person took the time to write and to send a gift. One of our parishioners, the week of Easter, I opened this note, very brief note, and it said, "I'm sure the Easter collection was not what it needed to be. I hope this helps." And there was a check for $5,000 to help. Those are just two examples. I have a stack of mail. So thankful for all of those things. I have to acknowledge, because you've read about him twice now, and he's in church, the letter we sent out from the Finance Council, and the bulletin, I mentioned young Dominic. Who remembers reading about young Dominic, our first grader, who came up and gave me $10 as emergency $10. Young Dominic is sitting on the side. Dominic, stand up so we can all see you. Yeah, there's young Dominic, huh? And I'm going to rat him out again. Young Dominic handed me an envelope from the car on Sunday, and it was a thank you note, and I love the note. Forgive me, I won't quote it exactly. First of all, that envelope also had $15 in it, the new emergency 10, plus $5 from the tooth fairy. And he said, "Face it, I've got a lot more teeth that I can lose." I'm so thankful. Isn't the church alive and well, despite all of the challenges we see in the media? And we have problems, and we're working through them. But so many of you, I can ask you all to stand in individually and say all of the many beautiful things you've done, because I know them. The church is alive and well, and the church is strong, and I'm so thankful for that. And some here are most thankful that, the pandemic has forced me to learn to use technology. And isn't it a wonderful thing to be thankful, to be stretched in our limits of what we can do, to learn to do more and more things. My list of thanksgiving can go on and on. I will end it here. Know of my love for you. Know of my gratitude for all that you do. Know that the church is alive and strong. St. Gregory the Great family is alive and well and strong. And the final word is the word of thanks to the St. Vincent de Paul Society, members present here. Because every day they serve in our name, the poorest among us. They go to people's homes and interview them. They bring food and clothing. They provide assistance for housing. They provide appliances and furniture each and every day of the year. And they truly live the gospel. The left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. It is all kept so confidential, so secret. And at the end of Mass today, we have our ability to express our gratitude and be part of their work, as they will be at the doors with the basket As we know, this is the only time they ask us for money, and their entire budget comes from this Mass. Now, we're fewer in number. I'm not asking you all to make up for those who aren't here, because some are also mailing in donations. But I do ask those online to consider sending in that donation for the St. Vincent de Paul, and at the end of Mass as we leave, to also express our gratitude for them, our gratitude for God, for all of what we have, and that gift to serve the needs of the poor. Thank you, and may God bless you.